So now that we covered the subconscious mind, the question becomes how to let go of it. Okay, how do the 3 steps of letting go apply to this? Because there are some differences. So let's start with the first step here. Be aware of what you want to let go of. And for this step, as I mentioned in the previous video, you can use any of the 5 ways of identifying the subconscious, be it, thinking back to your childhood, looking for recurring patterns in your life, anytime you get triggered, any signs of escapism, and reflecting and sinking into your fears, okay, following the trail of whys. And once you have it, once you've identified it, remember to dive into these sensations. Don't get sucked into the story, okay? Don't get sucked in mentally or try to reframe it. That's a big one. It's like, oh, now I remember it. Let's just say me being the bad guy or identifying with the bad guy. I'm like, ooh, it's the bad guy. Let's try to mentally maybe change the story, mentally reframe it. No, simply dive into your body and bring awareness to the different sensations that start appearing, okay? And what's extremely important here in terms of the subconscious is to follow whatever comes up to its source. That is key. It's not just being aware of what you're presently experiencing, like, I'm aware of this. It's when was maybe a previous time I experienced these exact sensations? When was the first time I experienced these exact sensations? Okay, and keep bringing your attention to this. When was the first time? When was the first time? When was the first time? Asking this question over and over and over again until you eventually get to the source. And don't expect it to just happen at once. For me, with that media scandal example, I didn't see the patterns at first. I was like, well, let's dive into this. And I would sit down and replay again the media scandal or the sensations. When was the previous time I experienced these same sensations? And then, after a few times, previous relationships that I just blocked off. Like, once you're aware of them, it's like, oh, of course. But I didn't know at the time. So, previous relationships. And then I remembered this weird movie I saw as a kid. It was George of the Jungle. Totally random. Like, whoa, I remember really liking the bad guy character. And then I could see the pattern, like, in all these movies, it's always the bad guy character. The guy who just kind of tries to succeed but never does. Like, always just fails at the end. And there's always a lot of drama. That's interesting. Do it a few more times and then start being aware of, say, playing toys with my sister. So it doesn't all come up at once. But if you just keep bringing your attention and ask yourself, when was the first time? When was the first time? With time and repetition, you'll eventually get there, okay? Don't try to rush it. Don't try to force it. Simply bring your attention there and just let your subconscious eventually offer it up to you, okay? And be okay with whatever comes up. Sometimes you'll sit there with those sensations and you ask yourself, when was the previous time I experienced this? When was the first time I experienced this? And nothing comes up. There's just layers of resistance. You're just like, okay, well, let me just work with what comes up. And in that case, you just tune into that, you experience it fully and let go of it. Next time, same thing. Next time, same thing. And trust here that no matter what comes up, it's what you need at that moment in time. Don't judge it, don't label it, don't have expectations in terms of what comes up. Whatever comes up is what you need. Have zero expectations. If you sit down and you're like, when was the first time I experienced these sensations? And you're expecting that first time to, appear, you're restricting whatever comes up. Like, it must be this, it must be this. Be open. Whatever comes up, and now you're open to really experiencing it all versus it must be the first time only. Okay? And remember too, there's a lot of shame, guilt, and fear over what's in there. You've been keeping it down for a long time, so you'll probably have to let go of that resistance first. And with resistance, a good question to ask yourself is, what's the worst thing that could happen by me letting this come up and let it go? And then those sensations of resistance will kick in. Let go of that, let go of that, let go of that. If a little bit comes up, what's the worst thing that could happen if I let a little bit more up and let go of that? Resistance, let go of those sensations, accept them, breathe into them, let them run their course and disappear, okay? And as I mentioned before, usually your subconscious will offer a few bits and pieces first to make sure it's okay. It's like, is it okay? Is it okay? And then eventually you'll see everything will just come rushing up. And keep in mind too, there's no wrong way of doing this. Whatever comes up is what you need at that moment in time. It's what you need then and there, okay? And this is important to realize that you don't have to consciously remember and conceptually re-experience an event to let go of it, okay? So when you think, okay, maybe there's a traumatic event down here, and for me to let go of it, I need to trace it back to its source and remember every little bit of that traumatic event, you know? I have to remember like what was going on, the visual memory of that event. If it was, say, me as a baby coming out of the womb, I need to remember me coming out of the womb to let go of it. No, okay? This isn't about remembering all the visual images and all of that, okay? It's okay if you don't see anything. It's not the thing that we're after, it's the sensation. So it's not about remembering all the components, it's the sensation. That's what you need to tune into. It's don't think about the memory, feel it. And understand too that we are primarily emotional creatures. You know, when we come into this world, we don't have the capacity to fully conceptualize yet. So we start to learn by feeling before we start thinking and conceptualizing. So a lot of these early, let's just say, traumatic experiences, they're only in you in terms of sensations. There is no visual component to them, if you will. Okay, so remember, don't think your way to the source, feel your way to the source. And on the practical side of things, what I personally like doing here to really help with this is, one, create a safe and relaxing environment. So if I'm going to start diving into my subconscious, I'm not going to do it somewhere where I can easily be interrupted or distracted. You know, it's somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere where I can really feel relaxed and receptive. You know, because there is that fear like, is it okay to let it out? What if I let it out and suddenly I'm interrupted and now I'm even more traumatized? Because you are opening yourself up to, I mean, what's like you fear the most. You know, you have to be you have to be very vulnerable here. You know, that's the only way. So any environment where you feel safe to open up, safe to be vulnerable, and an environment too to let your subconscious know that, hey, it's okay to bring things up right now. It's safe, we're good, we're in a very quiet, relaxed place, bring it up. Okay, a quiet room helps. Again, no distractions, no chances of interruptions. If you have, again, your cell phone on, notifications, turn that off. Find a place where you can just temporarily exile yourself from the world. And I personally find that closing my eyes really helps with this too. Like, it's just me with myself. Okay, fully close your eyes versus, you know, looking around. So, I mean, that's what works for me. Some people also like doing it in the presence of someone else who they trust. You know, if there's someone like to be there with you. This is another thing I love to do during the Transformation Mastery live events, because you not only have the support of someone else, say, up with you on stage, but you have the support of everyone there in the crowd. So this really helps communicate to the subconscious, let it out. It's okay. You're not alone in this. There's someone else. There's an entire crowd here with you. So everyone kind of supports each other there, and a lot comes up. So that's the first thing I'll do, is create this safe space. The second is to really ground myself. And this can sound a little out there, but I mean, try it out. I personally find it helps like crazy, where I don't just ground myself in my body at the base of my spine, but once I do that, like, okay, base of my spine, through the pranic breathing technique, I'll then add an extra step where I really like ground myself to the earth, if you will, where I'll visualize, you know, from like, let's just say that the base of my feet, roots coming out into the earth, like as a tree, me grounding myself. And then I'll breathe that in, okay? And again, it sounds a little out there, but the key here is to communicate to your subconscious, it's okay. It's okay to bring it up. You're in an environment where it's safe. You're grounded. You're not gonna be knocked off balance by all these traumatic things that come up. You're just very solid. Bring it. I'm grounded. I'm there. Bring it. That's the message you want to communicate. So that's what I personally do. Again, visualizing the roots, coming out the soles of my feet, and then using that same pranic breathing technique, really adding that extra layer of groundedness. Okay, basically creating that strong connection to the earth, being grounded to the earth. So that's the first step, letting it come up and being aware of it. For the second step here, allow yourself to experience it fully. During this step, when you're dealing with what's in the subconscious, it's even more tempting to want to do something about it, change it, and fix it. Okay, and once again, don't. You must resist that. There's nothing you need to do. Remember, it's about accepting and validating. Okay, and this doesn't mean you need to approve of it. That's not what I mean by accepting. It's not, oh, that traumatic experience, oh, great. Of course not. It means experiencing it fully. Experiencing it fully and unconditionally. Being there for yourself fully and unconditionally. When you do that, that's how you let go of it. Okay, and don't expect or try to make it better and improve it, as by trying to improve it, you're still viewing it as bad. And you're still resisting it by hanging on to it that way. This is about just fully accepting whatever comes up, whatever is there, and it may get worse before it gets better. Okay, don't be surprised during the second step when dealing with what's just buried in your subconscious if extreme sensations start to happen. You know, if you start shaking, if you start like crying, if again, it's like it gets really intense, simply stay with it. Again, you're staying with it unconditionally, and breathe through it. Do not resist it and do not suppress it. That's what happens. You know, it's like you'll go through some resistance and you let a little bit out, let a little bit more out, and then it just comes rushing out. And the first reflex we have is, oh my God, this is bad. It's getting worse. Let's shove that down now. No, that is good. You go through that little dip of things getting quote unquote worse. You embrace it. Okay, and it may get quote unquote worse for a period of time. It may get worse for like a week, where for a week you just feel vulnerable. For a week, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse until eventually it's gone. It finally matured. It finally ran its course. There are no sensations, remember this, there are no sensations that cannot be transformed. Just simply keep validating, keep experiencing, keep staying with whatever comes up. Okay, and take as much time as you like with this too. There is really no limit. Again, just keep staying with it. Keep staying with it. Don't rush it. Some sensations will transform very fast. Some others will take a lot of time, but you're in no rush. Just finally stay there and be with yourself and be yourself fully. Okay, that's the second step. And the third step, let it come up and let it out. This is when you finally invite those sensations to come up and you allow them to leave. Okay, and what's important here when dealing with what's buried in here is that when you're done, when you come back to what's going on here after they've run their course and left, is to take a few deep breaths first, as letting go of what's in your subconscious is a lot more of an intense kind of process. Don't just get up and whoa, just go about your day. Take a few deep breaths. Okay, take some time to adjust and get used to your surroundings again. Okay, let things settle. You can gently move around a bit, you know, gently shake your body out, and look again for signs of relief. That's how you know if you let go. Okay, you may feel quote unquote worse, but you feel more relieved. And sometimes the change will be drastic and visible, but other times it'll be more subtle. You know, we often think, you know, I didn't let go of something, but in reality, you did. Just look for, again, do you feel a little bit more relieved than before? And if that's the case, you let go, okay? And this doesn't mean that you're gonna feel happier or more positive. As I mentioned, you could feel a lot, like, let's just say more angry or hurt than before. But as long as that relief is there, you're good. As long as you feel more at peace, you're good. And don't beat yourself up if you don't let go of everything at once. Remember, some of these things take a lot more time. You can't rush the process, and keep in mind that you don't need to let go of everything to start noticing results. Just change a little bit, get to the cause a little bit more, and you will start seeing your experience of yourself will change, and your experience of the world will change as well. Okay, so these are how the 3 steps really apply to what is buried down there in your subconscious.